Kia ora, good afternoon. So I'm just going to make this quick little video because I've just had an epiphany or a sudden realization about something that is disturbing. I'm going to look into it, but I'm pretty sure I'm right. But if you look at my last post, literally my last post about Russell Brand, I was talking about I've never really been one for liking older men other than when I was a kid, and liked Duran Duran when I was like 10, 11, 12. I was utterly convinced I was going to marry Nick Rhodes from Duran Duran, and then I was a little bit older, it was going to be Jordan Knight from New Kids on the Block. But these men were older than me. But other than that, in my actual love life and dating life, my actual relationship life, I never fancied older men. And then I was saying, until you just read the post. It's embarrassing because, because I hashtag him. I shouldn't laugh because this isn't actually a comedy post, a comedy video that I'm making. I was saying Vladimir Putin, if he wasn't married, like if I knew him in the physical and that, he could be someone very easy to fall in love with because he's so cultured and classy and sophisticated, and he's strong and masculine, and he's driven, and he's very intelligent and very poetic and philanthropic and philosophical, and I've been watching him a lot, studying him a lot, because of the fact that if I do end up going to Russia, when I do end up being in the public eye, I've been learning from him how he acts in that in public, because I know in real life, Libras, well, his kind of Libra, tend to be quite reserved and shy. So I wanted to, they have they're not the sort of people that, how do I say this? Because my ex is a Libra, and he's the total opposite of Vladimir Putin. Like, you couldn't, like chalk and cheese. Whereas my ex craves the limelight and needs to be seen and needs to have attention, and is mentally unstable and violent and angry and aggressive and sneaky and underhanded, and the complete opposite of what a masculine is or what a gentleman is. He used to be like that until he snapped. Whereas my ex-husband and Vladimir Putin would be the absolute perfect case study of zodiac signs of an ascending, descending version. The descending version of a Libra and the ascending version of a Libra. I would love to do a whole case study based on the ascending versions of zodiac signs, and I'm not even joking. Because there is like a whole science to it, and as an ascension scientist, I never stop learning about human behavior in conjunction with faith and religion and spirituality, and human behavior and the psychology of faith, basically, on the mind, body and soul. And your star signs in that do absolutely. Your zodiac sign. Now, I'm not a fan of astrology. Horoscopes. I'm not a fan of horoscopes. I don't think you should be using astrology and horoscopes to guide your future. But zodiac signs, like your constellation, your star signs, that sort of thing, absolutely 100%. There is a science in it, and that's my science, which is why you always hear me say things like, well, he's a Cancer, or, oh, well, he's a Libra, or that's because he's a blah. Like, it really does, your star sign, your placements within the planet really do matter to who you are as a person and how you ascend if you're chosen. But horoscopes and that, never ever ever use horoscopes to predict the future, because you have to take into consideration things like your parents' birth signs, your grandparents' star signs, like that sort of thing. But anyway, so yeah, so I was talking about how he's ascending. Like, you can see the ascension on his, like, you can literally see in certain videos and that, you can see his face from when he was like at university and law school. Like, his look, his youth is starting to come back. And so yeah, I was talking, and then I was sitting there thinking about what I'd said about other than childhood crushes, I've never really liked older men. And then it got me thinking, which is why I shouldn't be laughing, because it is something that, as an ascension scientist, as somebody who specializes in energy and biorhythmic frequencies, and the Schumann resonance and the creation frequency and all that sort of stuff, this is something that I think I'm going to have to look into further, especially because I'm going to be having a radio station, and kids writing and performing their own music and stuff. And I've always been very mindful of the fact that how we put their music and their voices across the radio and the airwaves and all of that, is going to have to be biorhythmically infused, so that people hearing it and when they play it aren't affected by any of the moods that the kids are going through or anything like that. And I've talked about this extensively before on the channel and on social media. Who you're around affects you. You become the people that you're around. You are the company you keep. So the songs and stuff that you write, when you're putting those words into notes, and then broadcasting it out on the airwaves and that, the people that listen to it, you have to be very mindful of your moods in that when you compose and record this stuff, because the people who listen to it are going to be psychologically affected by the song, by the music. So then it got me thinking, why was I at 10, 11, 12 years old lusting after a man in his 20s and 30s? Nick Rhodes is probably in his 20s. I'd have to have a look, but I think he was 32 by the time I started, like in his 30s by the time I started like growing out of liking them. But that's not normal for a 10, 11, 12-year-old to lust after a man in his 20s and 30s. And then I did it again with Nick Rhodes, and then it got me thinking about like Elvis Presley and the Beatles and all these underage girls that were throwing themselves at these men who were in their 20s and 30s. The Beatles, Elvis Presley, all of them. From like the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, right up until now, you've got these underage girls throwing themselves at men in their 20s and 30s, and maybe even older. So then I was trying to think, how far back did that go? Because as far as I can remember, it was like Elvis Presley, Cliff Richard, and then the Beatles kind of took over from Elvis Presley. So then I thought, that's not normal. And then I was thinking of, who is it sung that song? You Don't Own Me. That one. I know it was written by two men, but now I just can't stop thinking. It's the Schumann resonance. Because I've been saying for the longest time, be careful what you listen to, be careful what you watch, because they can change your moods, bearing in mind these energy weapons have Nikola Tesla, I call him Nikola, but people say Nikola. he invented the energy weapon, the one that they used to, control the mind and affect people's moods in that, in 1898. And it was around the 50s when you had these young girls starting to throw themselves at people like Elvis Presley and that. And then we had the sexual liberation of the 60s. And then, women's lib and women's freedom, taking off the bras and all that sort of thing in the 70s. I'll do what I want, I'll marry who I want, all that sort of thing. You had lots of young girls running off and getting married, like Jerry Lee Lewis. He married his 13-year-old cousin. Elvis Presley married Priscilla, like he was dating her when she was really, really young. And it's the Schumann resonance. And I'm telling you now, it's not normal for underage girls to be having fantasies about marrying men in their 20s and 30s. It's not normal. And I think it's because they've been using the Schumann resonance over the radio waves, over the, the frequency, through the music, to hypersexualize children. And you can't say I'm wrong, because the evidence speaks for itself. And then when you look at the whole Diddy Epstein thing, they have these young girls thinking they're something special because a rich, famous celebrity artist or billionaire or whatever lusted after them, which, I mean, I've got to be honest and say, and I've said it before, when I was 16, I dated a man in his 20s. We got engaged when I was 19 and he was 32. And I'd known him since I was 16. We had our first kiss when I was 16. And he was a separated man in his 20s, and we got engaged when I was 32. And nobody batted an eyelid. And that's not normal. That's not good. I would have absolutely have done things with Nick Rhodes at 11, 12 years old without even battering an eyelid. And I am putting it out there now. I'm absolutely not saying that Nick Rhodes would have done anything, but I was a kid in love with a keyboardist from a pop band, and I wanted to be his wife. Me and my best friend used to say, "We'll go over to Birmingham," even though they didn't live in Birmingham, but that's where they were from. And we'd be their secretaries, and then they'd fall in love with us, and we used to like fantasize these whole scenes in that where we'd be kissing and having babies and all, and we were like 11. Who does that at 11? That's not normal. And then, of course, kids become obsessed with the music, and it becomes addictive. You look at like the K-pop stuff, it is 100% Schumann resonance interference to hypersexualize children, girls especially, because girls are the ones that the Epsteins and all that, the Diddies. I mean, obviously, I'm not saying that the male victims and all of this, because that's the thing, is that the male victims haven't been given a voice and all of that. People need to understand that, they kidnap boys and that for Epstein and that as well. There are people out there who preferred, and we're going to name names on the Epstein, like apparently Obama was for the boys, for the young boys. They used to get boys for him. So, let's not forget about the male victims and all of this. But it's not normal. I mean, it's quite disturbing, actually, that they're using music. I was going to say music to affect the moods and minds and hormones of teenagers so that they can hypersexualize them. How many stories do you hear about these young runaway girls, these teenage runaway girls? I was watching a documentary the other day. These teenage girls that run away from home to go to New York or LA or, London or the big city and that, to catch a break or to try and get their favourite crush to fall in love with them, or to be a famous this or a famous that, and they end up in the wrong hands. It's all done by design through the music. I'm telling you now. Can you think of anyone before Elvis Presley? I'm trying to think of anyone before Elvis Presley. I mean, I know you would have had a lot of your blues musicians and R&B and all that before him. It's just I'm trying to think of like the most famous person that everybody would know, who was famous for, when music and pop stars and that started becoming like a big thing, where there were young girls, like young girls, throwing themselves at these celebrities, at their idols. And he's the first one I can think of. I'm going to have a look. I mean, I know there would have been like blues musicians and R&B and all of that, probably, that came before him, because I know he was heavily influenced by black artists and the R&B and blues industry and all that sort of thing. So it's bound to have existed before then, but on like a global scale, on like a mass global world famous scale, can you think of anyone before Elvis Presley who had young girls throwing themselves at them where it was underage? And he apparently did do things with underage girls. I mean, Priscilla, for example. So this whole grooming gang thing has been going on, I think, a lot longer than what we realise. And it started in the music industry, because I think the music is the easiest way to mess with the Schumann resonance. And it certainly would have been back then, because not everybody had TVs back then. Everyone had radios. No one had cell phones. No one had internet. Most people didn't even have a telephone. A lot of people didn't have a telephone in the 40s and 50s and that. So it made sense to do it over the radio, because the radio waves is the easiest way to corrupt the Schumann resonance, to, dial it up and down. Nowadays, it's like you got Spotify and you've got YouTube, and you've got all your like Apple Music and Amazon Music and all of that, and your headphones, and so it's easier to use the Schumann resonance to affect change in the minds of those who are still developing, which is teenagers, prepubescent and pubescent teenagers. And they're the ones most likely to buy a pop star's merchandise and music. You don't see women my age lusting after K-pop people. K-pop boys, and if they're out there, they need to be assessed. Like, that's not normal. Grown women shouldn't be lusting after young boys like that. Like, it's not normal. But now I'm starting to realise that it's also not normal that 10, 11, 12-year-olds do it either. Kissing and, wanting to kiss them and crying and sending them love letters and, fantasising about marrying them and things like that. That's not normal. And that's made me had to think long and hard now about my music production company, because obviously we're going to have a production company for our music. We're going to need a recording studio, because we're going to be I want to put Vanta Blackout on vinyl, and the kids are going to be the ones playing all the instruments, and it's me and my composer that are going to be sitting and writing the song. I know I can trust my frequency, which is why I have to be the one to compose the songs, because I'm the one that controls the biorhythmic frequency and whatever it is that we write musically. But these kids are also going to be writing their own songs and producing their own albums and, having their own bands and all of that. So, so now that's kind of made me have to think, okay, we have to take this a little bit more seriously. Because if any of my kids that we sign up ended up becoming like the next Elvis or something, I need to make sure that they're respected for their music and not for the potentiality to be at risk for being an object of sexual desires for someone underage, or how they present themselves isn't hypersexualized. I'm not going to allow any of my girls to wear anything whorish or slutty. Don't have to wear skirts down to the ground, but none of my girls, if they're going to be on album covers or going up on stage or being promoted through my music company, none of them will be dressing like whores. So my music mentors and that are going to have to be the sort of people that conduct themselves professionally around younger people, who also have self-respect, who would never dream of, while everyone in the music and movie industry wants to have fans and be idolized and that sort of thing, that if they get it, they don't use it to their advantage to exploit the opposite sex or the same sex if they're gay, you know what I mean, to exploit their fans sexually, or to sell sex through their music. If you have to sell sex through your music, you're not a good musician. Just because you've been in the music industry 40 years doesn't mean you can sing. You can be an incredible songwriter and an incredible performer, but be really bad at singing. It's all in, well, I mean, it's an Illuminati thing, eh? If you're famous, unless you're like a B-list, C-list, if you're like A-list, you've signed your soul to something, because they don't let you in otherwise. Which is why at my foundation, my recording studio, my music company, my movie studio, my TV production company, my radio station, all of it is all going to be based on self-respect and having pride in your work for all the right reasons. And there will be no exploitation of my children. Their parents won't even have access to the money they make. Their managers, if they have managers outside of my company, won't have access to the money they make. Everything will be 100%, all rights to their music, all rights to everything that the kids create off their own back, that we then fund and support and help put out there. Everything goes to them, and they'll either be given like an allowance. They'll choose between an allowance or getting a lump sum when they, once they reach a certain age, that family, anyone outside of them won't have access to, because they'll have like a little building society thing just for staff and students, wages and funds and all of that. Their what do you call it, royalties. So that's got me like, I can't unthink that now. There was probably people before Elvis Presley, but Elvis Presley's the only one I can think of, because when I'm thinking about like when all these movie stars and singers and that used to go out to do the stuff during the war, you didn't see girls running around the street throwing their knickers at people and sending them love letters and all of that. It seems to have been after the war. It was like Elvis Presley seems to have been like the poster child for enticing underage girls to have sexual fantasies about someone older than them. Off the top of my head, I will stipulate that. Someone else might say, oh no, I remember, Glenn Miller. Well, I don't know. I don't know if people did it with Glenn Miller. I mean, he seemed like just an incredible, lovely man. I just had a lot of said what happened to Glenn Miller, but you know what I mean. Interesting and disturbing. And I don't mean to laugh during this, but I'm going to have a look into this now, because as someone who's going to be signing up children to, make albums and perform on stage and that sort of thing, I'm going to have to make sure that we are as tight as a drum when it comes to the Schumann resonance not being affected, not being touched, not being affected, so that it can't affect those who listen to their music, especially if they're underage. Having said that, though, if there's mentally unstable older women, there are plenty of mentally unstable older women and men who would absolutely jump at the chance to sleep with one of those like 16, 17-year-old K-pop boys. I mean, ugh. That's not normal, people, and it's because we've been fed the Schumann resonance our entire lives. My parents were never like that. I mean, I don't know any of my aunties or uncles and that were like that with celebrities over the 50s and 60s and that, but we didn't have a lot of access to music growing up back then in New Zealand, because of the fact that we were usually like one of the last countries to get technology. I mean, my family got a microwave in the 80s, and I found out when I came over to the UK that Americans and that had been using microwaves since the 60s. And I didn't even have any idea. I thought it was like an 80s thing. But I thought we were one of the first, but no, it had been around for years. So New Zealand was always like a little bit behind everyone else. So that might have something to do with it, but I don't know. I mean, I'm going to have to look into this now, because as someone who's going to be signing up kids and having a music company, I never even thought about that before. And see, the thing is, I always just thought, and this is a very serious subject matter, I always thought that, when you've been essayed as a child, or emmed as a child, mould as a child, you go one of three ways. You either abstain from sex, you become an offender yourself, or you become promiscuous. And I was promiscuous. I'm ashamed to say it. I thought that love and sex went hand in hand, and I was promiscuous until I fell in love when I was 20. Well, actually, oh God, until my first fiance, Philip, when I was 19, the one that was in his 20s. I just feel sick to my stomach even saying that. But then when I married my first husband, Paul, when I was 20, I fell in love with the idea of being a wife and a mum, and then that's it. Since I was 20, I've slept with two men and I was married to them both. I've had three husbands, but I never got to consummate my third marriage because he was locked up, and then, God, he left me for the pedophile and child abuser before he got out in 2019, which is the whole reason why I'm in this mess anyway, because it was all planned. They'd all planned it with my ex to do everything that they did to me, which is why I'm here now. So yeah, I've had two men since then, and then of course when my marriage was over in October 2019, and I said to my boys, well, I guess this means I get to go out on the dating scene. They said, can you not? Can you just like not date men and just wait until you find someone that we all like that you can marry instead? And I was like, yes, I will do that. So I haven't been on a single date with a man. I haven't been kissed since 2017. My pals, like my male friends, like my pals and that, my friend Liam and that, I'll give him a hug, but it's different when it's platonic. But I mean, like, when it's the potential for a date or anything like that, I've had one man touch my hand and I panicked and ran away. Like, I had a panic attack because the first thing I thought was my boys are going to kill me. This was like in 2020. I panicked and ran away. His name was Jorge. So, yeah. Oh, God. Yeah, I did. I panicked and ran away. So, technically, I've had one man touch me. He literally just touched me on the hand, went to, like, hold my hand, and I panicked and ran away. And, yeah, never spoke to him since. Um, but, yeah, my last kiss was on my wedding day, 2017, December 11th. Is that when I got married? December 11th, 2017. So I was able to tone it all down, and especially once I had my ascension and gained self-respect and lost weight and, got the confidence to actually love myself again. Well, love myself for the first time ever. I wouldn't, I'm quite happy to be the. I can, I can, oh, I shouldn't be saying this. I got called because I always say that I'm top shelf. Like, I sit on the top shelf. You have to rise to meet me. Like, I'm not bargain basement reduced to clear kind of female. I'm a woman. I'm top shelf. I'm like top shelf alcohol and that. You have to be able to afford me. And I don't mean financially. I mean, like, emotionally and, on a maturity level. And, we have to be on the same level, basically. It's got nothing to do with money or income because I don't care about that. I just care that you're faithful and loyal. And dedicated, and that he is supportive of what I do. If he could get involved in what I do, I'd be so happy. But yeah, I got called. You know how? Oh, I shouldn't say this. You know how? You know that elf on a shelf? I was called a milf. Milf on the shelf. I shouldn't laugh because this is a very serious subject matter, but I'm just trying to. Oh, Lord. But yeah, since I became a reverend, and I'd been wanting to be a reverend, I've been thinking about it for a long time. I've got videos way back in the day talking about I wanted to become a marriage celebrant because when I was thinking I was moving to America so that I could perform weddings and like do wick, like indigenous style occult in the nicest sense of the word, weddings, like wick weddings. Um, we're using sand and brooms and herbs and candles and all of that. But of course, I'm not going to America now. I'm hoping I can go to Russia, but I mean, you can wish in one hand and poop in the other, and see which hand gets full first. And that's what my mother used to say. But it's just because there's so many times when I've been utterly convinced, yep, it's Moscow, yep, it's Canada, yep, it's blah, and then I get these signs and signals that say no. So if it's Eastern Russia, we'll find out, because once I know I lock everything into place, once my target is locked into my central GPS system and the coordinates are put into my brain, when it locks right in place to the perfect place, everything will fall into alignment, and then my wish will get fulfilled. Then I'll get my wish fulfillment. once I lock on target the exact location of where I'm supposed to go, then everything will fall into place and fall into alignment, and drop into alignment, and then I will end up going there, because I have to find them. They're making me do it myself instead of just handing me the answer and saying, we want you to move here. They keep sending me all these little signals and stuff and dreams that I'm clearly not interpreting right. But when I do interpret them, it's like, with the Moscow thing, start here and then work your way across. Instead of just handing me the answer, they're making me do everything the hard way. But it's all to hone in my bounty hunting skills. So, like, I understand why they're doing it. It's just annoying because I just want to hurry up and get there. I just want to. I'm so done with this life. I've got billions and billions and billions of pounds worth of stuff to create, just sitting here waiting to go, and I can't get there until I find my location, and they're forcing me to find my location myself. Instead of just saying, we need you to move here, they're making me do all these physics and all of that. But I understand why they're doing it. I'm not complaining. It's just annoying because, like, you have no idea. I've been sitting on these creations for so long, for so many years, building on it and changing everything and editing it, because everything needs to be perfect by the time we open the doors to let these kids in, for the very reason that I'm talking about. The kids need saving now. Kids are being literally fed to demons and devils and cannibals and vampires, literally, not even joking. And they need saving. All these kids and that with these talents have been fed to the sharks, and they need saving. So I need to hurry up and get everything into place so that I can open my gates and get all these kids in from around the world, and giving them some self-worth and confidence in that through their talents and creativity, and helping them make money for it and leave a legacy for themselves in the future that they can hopefully live off. If any of them don't make any royalties in that, I mean, they'll still be making money while they're there. They'll still have savings to go back with. They'll still have money. They still will have earned things because they get paid for everything they do. It's not like they're just coming and not doing anything. So I just want to hurry up and do it so that I can see the Dear Satan Claus and Vanta Black and the Quantum Menace and the Rise of the Dragon Queen and the President and the Pauper. I just want to see it all, the art of creation. I want to see it all out there. I want to see it on the screen. I want to be able to sit in the park and watch the kids put on the concerts, or any of my staff put on the concerts, and sit with my kids and my man with a picnic basket on a blanket, just listening to the music or watching the plays or watching them perform their ballet. Message in a Bottle, The Harvest, watching it be all performed on stage or on the screens and that. I just want to get to that point now, please, Lord. Thank you. So I don't mean, I'm not making light of this topic of conversation because it's a very serious matter. But at the same time, I'm trying to lighten the mood to let potential students and investors in that know that how I run my version of Disney and Hollywood and Motown and all of that, so to speak, will be nothing like the original versions. They will be far, far better. And now that I've had this realization, it's kind of woken me up a little. I feel like it's maybe God's way of saying, there's some parts of this, girl, that you need to take seriously. So, message received, Father, because that was a bit of a shock to the system to realise that. I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed as a kid who used to lust after Nick Rhodes at 11, 10, 11, 12. So, yeah, bit of a wake-up call. Message received, Lord. I'm on it. All I need now is justice. I need my money. I need to work really hard to, I don't know, I got to get my visa. I'm just really hoping and praying that the Russian government let me in. I've been trying to look at properties in Eastern Russia for sale, and I'm probably if I am going to move to Eastern Russia, Vladivostok, Vladivostok, or further over, I'm probably going to have to build like from scratch, because I couldn't find anything over there that even resembled what I was looking at in Moscow with like Deauville Castle and all that. So I feel like I'm back to square one. I'm always back to square one. That's the thing with the ministry. The amount of times you got to tear stuff down and start again is unbelievable. But it's all a test of faith. They tear it down. No, that's not good enough. Start again. Tear it down. No, that's not good enough. Start again. Oh, but every time you rebuild, it gets better and better and better. It just means that I've put codes in the system that are failing the program, so to speak. I've put codes in the system wrong. And once I put the codes in the system right, everything will manifest and fall into place. And then I'll know with pinpoint accuracy exactly where I'm supposed to go. And then I will get there. That's how I'll know I put the codes in properly. So anyway, I'm going to go now. I don't even know what to say about that hypothesis, but I'll let you think of it what you will. I shall speak to you later. Ka kite anō.